inequalities with one variable. These are inequalities like this. 3x minus 5 is less than 7, right? There's just one variable here, just the x. This is not a variable that you would graph on a graph like this. You would just solve it, and then you would graph it on a number line, right, or just one of these. Okay, so I think what would be most helpful here is just remember what these signs mean and what kind of graphs they result in. So this sign, right, and the way that I remember is this is an L, right, if I make it with my hand, and then that's what a less than sign looks like. So this one's the other way. This one's greater than. This one's less than. Now, both of these result in an open circle. They don't have that line underneath. They're not equal to. So we put an open circle to represent that. And when I go to graph this in a number line, I'll have an open circle. And on a number line, like let's say this is a 0, right? The numbers greater than 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the positive numbers are to the right. So whenever you're graphing with greater than, you're going to have an open circle and an arrow to the right. And whenever you're graphing with less than, you're going to have that same open circle, but you're going to end up shading to the left. With greater than or equal to, which is what this symbol means, you have a closed circle, because that's saying, oh, it can actually be equal to this number as well, and it can also be the numbers greater than that number. For less than or equal to, you'll use a closed circle, and you'll shade to the left. Remember, I promise you this will come up on your final. You flip the sign, meaning if it's a greater than sign, you flip it to a less than sign. If it's greater than or equal to sign, you flip it to a less than or equal to sign. Right? You flip it around so it faces the other direction. When you multiply or divide by a negative. Slope's up next. It's always represented by the letter m, right? And y equals mx plus b, that's slope. Here's what m equals. We've learned 3 different ways to represent it. On a graph, it's the rise of a run. We've also learned it's the change in the y value over the change in the x value. And one way that people remember to calculate this is the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And a quick example of how to use that. When you label the points, it's really important that you label them correctly. If you label them wrong, your answer is definitely going to be wrong. Here's how you label. This is point number 1, the x value and the y value. So x1, y1. And this is point number 2, x2 and y2. So when I go to use the slope formula, it's m equals, starts with y2, negative 1, minus y1 is 5, x2 is 6, minus x1 is 3. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. 6 minus 3 is positive 3. Negative divided by positive is a negative, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Parts of a graph. Graph has 4 quadrants. This is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Oops. And those 4 quadrants are created by the 2 axes. This is the x-axis and the y-axis. And the way we learn about locations on the graph is through points. The x-coordinate, which tells us where to go on the x-axis, where to go left to right. And if it's positive, we start here, we go to the right. If it's negative, we go to the left, right? This is negative and positive. And with the y-axis, the y-coordinate tells us where to go on the y-axis, where to go up and down. And if it's negative, we go down. And if it's positive, we go up. So a point like 3, negative 4, we'd start here, we'd go right 3, and then we'd go down 4. In fact, I'm just going to write that a little bit neater and have it as an example right here. Right, that's 3, negative 4. Right 3, down 4.